Hey guys, this is the 12-inch MacBook. This was something that Apple produced through 2015 until 2019, and I'm here to say this computer wasn't as bad as a lot of people thought it was. I'm not saying this computer is flawless because it did have its problems, which I will go over in this video, but I am saying I miss the 12-inch form factor. So the first and biggest problem, in my opinion, is this keyboard. This is Apple's Butterfly keyboard. They used this from 2015 to 2019 on most of their machines, and this was the first MacBook to get it. This keyboard is awful. It fails very frequently, and while the typing itself isn't that bad in my opinion, of course, that is pretty objective, like everybody's going to think different on this, it really had a lot of reliability issues, and it doesn't have that much key travel, and overall, the previous style keyboards that Apple was using for years at that point were better than this in my opinion. They didn't fail, they felt better, but this did start the big arrow keys, which I like personally. Now, after 2019, with the new style keyboard, we're back to the inverted T arrow keys. Just a really cool looking keyboard, but it is not functional really. It will get stuck, and the keys will get sticky, and the keys will double click. It's just overall not the best experience. The next issue that everybody seemed to have with this computer was something that doesn't matter that much in 2023. This computer only featured one port, and that one port was a USB Type-C port. Now, it did have a headphone jack, but for 2015, USB Type-C was not really established yet, so most phones were still using micro USB and Lightning for iPhones, and pretty much everything was still using USB-A. This computer was one of the first computers to have USB-C, and having this as its only port kinda killed it, because there's no way to charge the computer and use accessories without using some sort of a dock. And even to this day, I just picked this Micro Center USB up. USB-C is not that widely adopted by a lot of Windows manufacturers, but by Apple, all their computers now use USB Type-C. There's no more USB-A. I'm glad about this myself, because I just like Type-C a lot more. But for the time in 2015, adapters were becoming a big thing, and everybody kind of thought that Apple would add a USB-A port to the next MacBook Pro with the USB-C. Apple didn't make any other computers with USB-A besides the MacBook Air and the iMac and the desktops past this computer. So the good parts of this computer, though, really start to show with the display. The display on this computer is great. It's Apple's Retina display that they've been using for a while at this point, and it looks really nice. Viewing angles are amazing, as it always is on Retina displays. It's got great density, colors are great, it still holds up 100% in 2023. Now, with that said, it's not any mini LED display like Apple's new XDR screens on the MacBook Pro, but it's really good. This even beats out some new Windows laptops in my opinion. And the bezels, while they're not as thin as the new MacBooks, I think, personally, these are pretty thin. The next thing that Apple did really good on this is the speakers. So the speakers on this computer were actually much better than like even the MacBook Pros of the time. And I'm not going to touch on this too much because it is pretty minor, but of course modern MacBooks have pretty much exceeded this in speakers. It really was nice speakers, especially at the time. They still hold up today. But one thing that this computer did differently than any MacBook to date was colors. There were 3 color options available on this computer for the first time ever. There was space gray, silver, and gold, as I had here. And later on, there was a rose gold color in 2016. I actually have the gold color, and I really like this. But overall, that was the first Mac to have multiple different colors, and that was big for the Apple lineup because now the MacBook Air has an array of colors, and the MacBook Pro has 2 or 3 colors now too, depending on which model you buy. On the design, this was the thinnest and lightest MacBook Apple ever made, I believe, and carrying this computer around in 2023, it still feels modern. This has kind of the new Apple design with the metal hinge and the all-aluminum chassis. It has this nice thin taper like the MacBook Airs. A lot of people still confuse these with MacBook Airs, actually. This was not a MacBook Air. Apple wanted this to be something completely else. And even though the design was really good, this machine did not sell that well, I don't think. And it really was Apple trying to recreate the 12-inch PowerBook from the 2000s, because that was a nice machine, everybody liked that machine, but this machine, while it's a really nice computer, it had a reason to fail. The keyboard was awful, the single port didn't work out back in 2015, and the price tag being above $1,000 was just too much. And to top all that off, the performance numbers were awful back in the day. This had the Intel Core M3. Of course, there's M5, M7, i5, and i7 models available after, some of them not available in the US, I believe. But for the performance numbers on the M3, it was bad. It did have 8 gigs of RAM and a 16 gig upgrade, luckily. The other issue is everything was soldered to the board, so upgrades are non-existent, but that's not that big of a deal, for me, at least. I wish that Apple would bring this machine back with the same design, maybe a new MacBook Air 12-inch design, but with Apple Silicon, because this thing had so much potential, but it was just ruined by the awful keyboard, the single port, and the awful performance, which, surprisingly, it performs okay in 2023. It's not going to compete with any Apple Silicon device. It's probably not even going to compete with, like, an iPhone 7, but it is not half bad. It is still kind of usable. So with all that said, thank you for watching this video, and goodbye.